and we'll go from there. So good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the UCF Mediation Team info session for spring 2022. My name is Dr. Christy Foley, and I am the advisor for the mediation team. I'm also a visiting lecturer in the Legal Studies Department, and I serve as the department's program coordinator and graduate program director. For those of you who don't know, we do have a graduate certificate program in conflict resolution, which dovetails nicely with the mediation team's endeavors. So that's a program that I oversee as well. So for those of you who are not familiar with the concept of mediation, at least not too in depth, let me go ahead and just start by giving you a little overview about the mediation process and what kind of conflict resolution that is. And then we'll talk specifically about the team. And if you have any questions at all as I go through things, please just unmute yourself and jump right in and ask your questions. So mediation is a process in which a third-party neutral, called a mediator, helps facilitate conversations between two people who are fighting, or at least two sides of people who are fighting, so that hopefully those people can hear each other out a little better, understand each other a little better, and come up with a settlement that they're both satisfied with and can agree to. So the way a mediation usually works is that the mediator will start with an opening statement, and there are certain elements of mediators required to hit in their opening statement, and then some other things that we like to hear in an opening statement. And if you're on the mediation team, we'll talk about all those things so that you're well prepared to handle that. And then after the mediator gives their opening statement, the parties will give their opening statements. So usually the plaintiff will give an opening statement. And typically if you have an attorney and a client present, both on the plaintiff side, then you'll have the attorney speak a little bit about the legal issues involved in the case, and you'll have the client speak a little bit about kind of the more emotional and personal issues involved in the case. And after that's done, then the defense will go ahead and give their opening statement. And that can be, again, the defendant's attorney or advocate can focus on the legal aspects of the case. And then the defendant, him or herself, the client, can focus on kind of the more emotional or personal aspects of their case. And after those opening statements are done, one of two things can happen. Either the parties can stay together a little bit longer and try and start talking about potential settlement options and ask some clarifying questions to better understand each other's positions. These are all things that the mediator will help the parties with. Or the mediator can choose to ask the parties to go into what's called caucus sessions. And those caucus sessions, that's really just a fancy term for one-on-one meetings. So the mediator will meet with the plaintiff and their attorney and send the defense side out of the room. And then after the mediator has talked to the plaintiff side for a little while, they'll go ahead and switch. So they'll send the plaintiff side out of the room and they'll talk to the defense side by themselves for a little while. And they do that to try and help clarify some of the issues, some of the perspectives each side may have, but also to ask them some challenging and thought-provoking questions to try and move them closer toward settlement. The thing about being a mediator, though, is that you're not a judge. You don't get to make a decision. You don't get to force a decision on anyone. So when you're asking those clarifying questions and kind of pushing people towards settlement, you have to watch your word choice. You have to be really careful that you as a mediator remain neutral and impartial in your word choices. And so that's actually, to me, one of the most exciting parts of mediation, because I have to figure out the best way to kind of poke and prod people and what questions to ask them to get them to realize the point I'm trying to make on their own. And so it takes a lot of intellectual thinking to be able to do that. Also requires you to be able to read people a little bit, but it's really fun when you get them to come to the conclusion you were hoping they would come to so that you can move them closer to settlement. Now, in mediation competitions, which the mediation team here at UCF does compete in competitions, you actually get in each competition to serve as a mediator, an advocate, which is an attorney role, and a client. So you get to sit in all the chairs that matter in a mediation, and you get to experience what it's like to be in each role. And you get to practice both your mediation skills and your attorney skills. You also get to see what it's like to sit in a client seat, which if you're ever planning on practicing law or doing any kind of mediation work, it's really helpful to know kind of how clients will process things and how they'll think about things. So it's a great experience to have. Now at UCF, we tend to participate in a mediation group called INADR. It's the International Academy of Dispute Resolution. And kind of like their name implies, they host international dispute resolution competitions. They host it both at the undergraduate level and the law school level. There are separate competitions for undergraduates and separate competitions for law students. Most of the undergraduate competitions take place in the fall, and we'll take a look at the upcoming calendar for fall 22 in just a few minutes. But generally, the way their competitions work is you'll travel to wherever their competition is taking place. And typically, the first maybe hour to 3 hours of the session is actually a learning session. So you get trained from some of the best mediators in the world on how to improve your skills. And then you go into your first round. And most competitions have anywhere from 3 to 4 rounds. So it can take about a day and a half, maybe 2 days to get in all the rounds. And then at the end of the competition, there is an award ceremony. And we'll talk about that in just a moment. But each team is made up of 3 students. Now, generally speaking, at a competition, UCF is allowed to bring at least 2 teams. And so what that means is that we have 6 students competing at each competition in 2 different teams of 3 people. And what you do is in one round, you'll play mediator. In another round, you'll play advocate or attorney. And in a third round, you'll play client. And usually within your team, you get to decide who wants to play which role for which round. And then in the actual competition, what happens is the 2 people who are playing the advocate and the client, they go into one room and maybe they're assigned to the plaintiff's side. So they're going to go be the plaintiffs in room A for round 1. And then the third person on the team, the one who's the mediator, is assigned to a separate room. So they might be assigned to room B, and they're actually going to get to co-mediate with someone from a different school. So the way co-mediation works is that you have 2 mediators who kind of work together to make the mediation as effective as possible. And so you get to really know other people from other schools, even internationally, which is awesome. I know at the last competition our school attended, most of the students ended up making friends with a school in Singapore. And so they were like going out to dinner with the kids from Singapore, you know, after the competition ended and things like that. They made really good friends and connections because in each round, you're going to be partnered with different people from different places. So you have an opportunity to meet a lot of different students, which is awesome. With that said, when it comes to judging, students are judged no matter what role they're in. So if they're in an advocate or client role, they're judged. And if they're in a mediator role, they're judged, which means every round they have an opportunity to earn points. So if you're a client or an advocate, you're judged on a few things. Number 1, your ability to present your case. Number 2, your ability to articulate the strengths and weaknesses of your case. And number 3, your ability to stay focused on your side's interests while working with the mediators and working toward a settlement in a realistic way. And then if you're a mediator, you're judged on separate things since you have a different goal as a mediator than you do as an advocate or client. So mediators are judged on their ability to listen, their ability to help each party see the strengths and weaknesses in their cases. So this is where asking some of those prodding questions comes in. They're also judged on their professionalism and ability to remain neutral throughout the mediation, and their ability to stay positive, as well as their ability to guide parties toward resolution. So for each different skill that you're expected to demonstrate, you're scored anywhere from 0 to 10. And then at the end of the tournament, what happens is that you have an opportunity to win individual awards as well as team awards. So let's say you go into a round as a mediator and you just knock it out of the ballpark. The judges, all of the judges give you 10s and they say, this person's a fantastic mediator. Well, you might end up taking home the award for best mediator in the whole tournament. Same with if you did a great job as like advocate and client, right? As an advocate client pair, you can take home an award for doing well. The other thing is that your team of 3 people can take home an award as well. So let's say everyone on your team is a really strong mediator. Everyone got like 9s and 10s from the judges. You all might be going home with an award for like #1 team of mediators. So a lot of times we'll see students come home with awards in more than one category, which is also really nice. Great to put on resumes, that's for sure. Any questions about how the judging goes or how the tournaments in general go? Okay, seeing no questions, I'll go ahead and continue. So here at UCF, the mediation team is a registered student organization. So you can follow us on the UCF RSO website. You can also check out our team's own website. You have a bit.ly link here, bit.ly/39JLD15. You can learn a lot more about our team on that site. The other thing is that here at UCF, the mediation team is not just an RSO. It's also a class. So if you wanted to get credit for participating in the mediation team, you could take the class in the fall, which we'll look at in just a second. And if you do take the class, you would be required to compete. If you just participate as part of an extracurricular as an RSO member, you're not required to compete. So really, it is up to you. If you're dead set on, hey, I really want to compete, and you have room in your schedule for fall to take the class, get credit for it. Why not? But if you're not sure if you want to compete, if you want to just learn more about mediation and practice your skills, doing it as part of an RSO and just an extracurricular activity is really probably the best way for you to do it. Now, when it comes to our class, in fall 22, the class is going to be on Thursday nights from 6 p.m. to 8:50 p.m. at the downtown campus. The class itself that you would look into registering for is called Negotiation in Practice. It's PLA 4243. So if you do have room in your schedule and you definitely want to compete, then taking that class, registering for that would be a great thing to do. The competitions that we currently have scheduled with INADR are what you see here on the slide. These are tentative dates for now, so just keep in mind the dates and even the locations could be subject to change. But right now we're looking at a competition in Gainesville, Georgia, not Gainesville, Florida, but Gainesville, Georgia, October 7th and 8th. That one we usually carpool and drive to in a couple of cars. And then another competition at the end of October, October 28th and 29th in Fairfield, Iowa. That's one that we would fly to. And another one we would fly to would be November 10th through 12th, and that's in Illinois. So that is actually, the November competition is a big one. Usually that's the one that has the most number of teams competing and the most number of international people competing. And then UCF just hosted its first mediation tournament for INADR, at least its first in-person one, about 2 weeks ago. And we're looking to host another one in the spring of 2023. So the tentative date for that is February 10th and 11th, and that would be here at the UCF downtown campus. Again, tentative dates and locations, but just to kind of let you know what to expect. And if you're interested in competing, these are good dates to put on your calendar now so that you know to hold them and reserve them in case you wind up competing at any of these tournaments. Usually the way it works is that because we are a pretty big team and we're generally only able to take 6 students to each competition, usually each student ends up competing once, maybe twice. So you don't usually get to go to all the competitions, just as a heads up. So at this point, I want to go ahead and pause and see what questions you all have for me about the mediation team.
I had a quick question. Kind of going back to what you just said about how one person gets, or you usually get to go towards one event. Would the people who take the class, since it's 4 credit, be picked over or before people who were just doing it for the extracurricular?
They would be, yes. And then the other thing that comes into play is that we have some students who are just on the team doing it as an extracurricular. They're not in the class, but they are diligent about showing up to every single practice. I mean, they might as well be in the class because they've never missed a single practice. So when we do have room for people who are doing it as an extracurricular to compete, those people who show that dedication and who have had the most practice are the first people that get picked to go to a competition, because we know they'll represent our university well. And then people who haven't been able to attend every practice and are just part of the RSO, they're at the bottom of the list for being able to attend the competitions.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. And just as a heads up, if you are interested in taking the class, technically the class does have a prerequisite. The prerequisite is negotiation alternatives in law. However, we do have the option, if you get the consent of instructor, which, hi, that's me, you can go ahead and override that prerequisite to get into the class. So if that is something you're interested in taking, the negotiation in practice class in the fall, so you can be an official member of the team, then keep in mind, if you haven't fulfilled the prerequisite, you'll need to reach out to me and let me know kind of why you're interested in being part of the mediation team, so that I can give you my consent to get enrolled in the class, because the normal registration system won't let you enroll unless you've completed that prerequisite of negotiation alternatives. What other questions?
For those of us that don't have any financial aid, do you know how much the class costs by itself?
Great question. It is a 3 credit class, just like any other class you would take in the legal studies department. So it's going to cost you the same amount it would cost you to take another 3 credit class in the department. So that's going to vary depending on your in-state or out-of-state status and everything like that. But it is a normal 3 credit class. The other thing to keep in mind is that if you are enrolled in the class, then your tuition for the class actually covers your team member fee. If you're just participating as part of an extracurricular, as part of the RSO, then there is a $70 annual mediation team fee that you have to pay. So that's another thing to keep in mind, but it's $70 for the whole year. So it covers you August to August.
Okay, so I graduate now. I'm going to be graduating on May 6th, but I still have my custom project to complete on the summer. Would I be able to still enroll for fall?
Great question, Janice. Unfortunately not, just because we do have to have students who are current students at the university who are participating on the team. And I think she dropped off for a second, so let's get her back in here. Janice, are you back?
Sorry, yes.
That's okay. So unfortunately, we only have current students who are participating on the team, not recent graduates. And that's in large part due to A, UCF's rules about who can be in an RSO, but also B, it's also due to INADR, the organization that we participate in, their rules regarding who's allowed to compete in tournaments and things like that.
Got it. Thank you.
Of course. What other questions do you all have? Okay, I don't see any popping up in chat, but if you do have any questions, you think of any questions, or you want permission to, skip past negotiation alternatives and jump right into negotiation in practice, feel free to reach out to me. My email is here on the slide. It's christy.foley@ucf.edu. I'm happy to answer any questions you have. If you want to set up individual Zoom meetings and ask more detailed questions, by all means, feel free to let me know that as well. Anything I can do to help you. But I want to thank you all so much for attending today's info session on the mediation team. And I hope the team will have your support and your help as a participant in the fall. So enjoy the rest of your afternoon and just let me know if I can be of service to you in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.